Welcome to Creative Spirit Gathering, our Monday morning chance to get together for spiritual inspiration and creative expression in our art journals. If you don't have an art journal, please know that you can use any loose paper that you have on hand. You can even grab an old napkin and doodle away. The idea is simply to connect our mind, our hearts, and our hands together in a time of spiritual creative reflection. Please feel free to donate to help support us. The website is unityartsministry.org. And today, as we've been talking this month about health and wholeness, I wanted to specifically bring in faith, because faith can be one of those healing agents in our lives. Faith itself can be a tool. And for each of us, faith might look a little bit different. For some people, faith is simply a belief in something. A belief in an idea, a belief in spirit, by whatever name you call that. And there's faith in that. For others, there's this concept of understanding faith. It's studying spiritual principles and seeing them as spiritual laws, that as we follow these steps, then here's the response to those steps, like a cause and action kind of thing. So it becomes more of this, okay, I can see how when this happens, then here's the response. So an understanding faith to spiritual principles and laws. And then I haven't, read this in a book, but this is my understanding of faith, is experiential faith, which is when I put my trust in something, when I have that connection to something, and I see it come back in my life. I know we often do vision boards through Unity Arts Ministry. How many of you have done a vision board? How many of you have seen something specifically that you put on your vision board, right? The power of visualization. You set an intention, you put something out there. How many have seen something come back then into your life that was specific to that? Show of hands in the Zoom room. Those of you on Facebook, you can leave a little comment. We'll know. Say, yes, I've experienced that. Yeah, so everybody in the Zoom room raised their hand. So when those things happen, to me, that's experiential faith. That builds faith. Because it's that knowing that, I did this one time, so logic would tell me it can happen again, it can work again. And when we trust in that, right, it's a little bit easier to trust in something that is then demonstrated. We've experienced it, because I could read books to you or, list them off. You could go do research on spirit or on, divine love in your life. And it's, from my perspective, it doesn't connect until there's that experience. Otherwise, you're just believing somebody else's words. So the whole idea of why we're doing the work that we do together is to make it practical, to create these steps so that we can have the experiences, or when we have them, to jot them down in our art journals so we remember, oh yeah, that happened. And those can be buildings, like little stepstones to building deeper faith in our lives. So specifically talking on faith as a healing agent, I want to refer to Myrtle Fillmore's book, Healing Letters. I believe I've referenced this month already, and sharing that the book is a compilation of letters that she wrote to people who wrote to her for prayer. So it's her prayer answers for them. And essentially, there were a few different steps that she kept repeating over and over to those who asked for prayer. And one of the first and primary things that she says time and time again is, in order for your healing, for your prayers to be answered, for this healing to take place, you need to establish yourself in that awareness of God. And she says these words specifically on that. A period of quiet and rest each day is your opportunity to establish yourself at the center of your being. the one place where the supply of life and substance is inexhaustible. God is this eternal life that we make into living, make into our living. Centering ourselves in that place within our own being, that's the supply of life and substance. Because often when we are feeling some sort of lack of wholeness in our lives or a dis-ease in some way in our bodies, we're not feeling that sense of connection. I know for me, I can easily get in that headspace of, woe is me, right? Like the other day, I had a little cramp in my ankle and I just kept thinking, you know, oh, my ankle hurts, my ankle hurts. And then I shifted to, my finger feels good. You know, I tried to take that energy away from the thing that I was putting this attention on and focus on this divine life that was working properly in my finger. And it was this shift. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, my ankle feels good. You know, just bringing that awareness from the thing that we don't want to what is working. And that's what I'm hearing Myrtle say here is, you know, especially when we're reaching out and we're saying, you know, I'm in need of something, or there's a lack, or something's not working properly, to really shift from that thought of limitation, that thought of lack, to that life-giving substance that is God, that we are always seeped in that energy. And to me, that's like the first step in faith, is remembering God presence right where we are, right in the midst of anything. So I have a specific example in my own life of how that remembrance of God led to a healing experience. Many years ago, my family was on a trip in San Diego, and I had taken my son to the restroom, and I had to lift him because he was little at the time. Now he's almost as tall as me, but he was itty bitty at the time. And so I had to like lift him so he could reach the sink to wash his hands. And when I did this, I felt this pop in my lower back. I was like, okay, well, that's not good, you know, kind of made my way back to the table. And my husband was like, you know, should we just go home? You know, how bad is it? I was like, it's bad, but it's okay. We can handle it. And by the time we got done with dinner and I'm trying to walk to the car, I was like limping and in so much pain. And the next day they took me to the chiropractor, and it like overnight, it just had like stiffened. If you've ever had the back pain, it's not fun. And I had to lay in the back seat. I couldn't even sit up. And I remember, you know, we were staying with my husband's grandfather at the time. And I remember staying in the room and being in that space of, oh, poor me, you know. Here we are on vacation. Everybody else gets to go out and do this stuff. And now I'm like literally stuck in bed. And all I could think about was the pain. I just kept focusing on that. And every time I went to get up, it was like more pain. And there was this moment where I stood up, and as I kind of like hoisted myself up, I noticed a little plaque on the wall that was right beside the bed. And on the plaque was James Dillett Freeman's The Prayer for Protection. For those of you who aren't familiar with these words, this is what I read. The light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The power of God protects me. The presence of God watches over me. Wherever I am, God is. Again, for anyone who's not familiar with a Unity Church service, this prayer for protection is often spoken at every single Sunday service. And so this was a prayer that I had heard many, many times in my life. And in that moment, there was this click, right? It moved from, it's something I read, it's something I've said, to an experience of knowing this truth in that moment. Wherever I am, God is. And that light, that healing light was surrounding me, and I claimed that. And I just sat there, you know, claiming it. And then I was able to walk, without fumbling from there to where I needed to be. And it wasn't an instantaneous healing, but the doctor that I was working with was shocked at the rate of recovery, considering where I was when I first walked in. None of us thought I was going to be able to be on a plane in a few days to make it home. And that renewed faith in my own healing and in that light of God, that energy that was healing my body, helped to restore me at a much quicker pace. And I was able to get home, and it did heal completely. So for me, that was one of those moments of knowing faith, knowing that experience, and having that opportunity really to live into these truth teachings. So how do we express that then in our journals? So again, so often I use my journal as a place for reflection. Everybody say hi to my husband as he walks by. They're all waving. So I often use my journal as a place to process things. And this was specifically an example of processing, scooting over so you can see it, of processing faith on the page. The image, when I look at this right now, I see these turquoise and blues, and they're these calm, soothing colors. Yet when I look closely, and I don't know if you can see all those layers in there, but looking closely, I can see this like scribble writing in the background. So I know when I started this page, that calm was not there. When I started, this was whatever the issue was, right? I'm journaling it out on there. And then asked myself, what do I need in this moment? And it was peace. And for me, this visual of Jesus in the boat with the disciples and the storm coming over them, and they're all freaking out, of course, and they wake him up, Master, there's this terrible storm. And his response is, peace, be still. And there was, in this moment of my mind, there was that in me, that light of God that just looked at all of it and said, peace, be still. And there was that washing over of that faith over the fears. And this was the image that I created as a response to that peace then that I felt. And here's the piece that I wanted to specifically share with you. So I added a little card in here with an affirmation in it. So I decorated a little, it was just a blank black card, and then added some details. So as we're practicing our faith, just as that prayer for protection really spoke to me that day, we can write our own little affirmative prayer and have that as like a reminder. So every time I go back to this page, when I'm feeling, this freak out moment, I'm like, okay, peace, be still, remember the calm. And then I have my little affirmation that I can read as well. So I invite you today, of course, to use whatever materials you want, to explore however you want to explore faith in your life. And again, as we're talking about healing, we're talking about that wholeness of mind, body, spirit. So there might not be a physical issue that you're wanting to resolve with faith, create from that place of fear to faith on a physical level, but maybe there's some mental, anxieties around, who knows what these days, but focusing on that wholeness and focusing on that light and love of God present in the midst of all of it. So we're going to do a short meditation and then move into our journal time collectively. So wherever you are, just know that you're part of this energy, this shared collective space as we're creating in faith today. So I invite you to become comfortable in your seat wherever you are. Take a couple of breaths here. Let all the ideas simply just settle in. We're going to begin with a short affirmation. I invite you to let these words be your words. With my thoughts, I reach out and touch the divine through prayer. I affirm the truth of my body's natural healing ability. I envision the radiating light of the divine working in me now to establish the highest manifestation of my physical being. Every cell of my body is infused with the life-creating properties. I'm renewed and revitalized from head to toe. My heart overflows with gratitude for the gift of health and wholeness. And let us simply rest for a moment of silence as we let this awareness sink into our heart space. Breathing in and out, we enter silence. On the next inhale, we bring our awareness back to this now moment. And we bring this energy of peace, this knowing of the divine light present right where we are, as we explore and create, letting our hearts experience this divine presence right here and now. And so it is. So I invite you now to move into your journal expression. Bye.